Today we shall discuss a no marriage chart. Why the marriage has not happened in this chart? For that we have to check second house, seventh house, and 11th house. We have to see the fertile nature of these houses. If they are aspected by more than two malefics and there is no aspect of a good planet or a natural benefic, then the house becomes non-functional. Here we will check what is the condition of the 11th house, what is the condition of the second house, and what is the condition of, sorry, this is 7 and this is second and this is the 11th house. We shall follow BNN rules and also apply Vedic logic also. Now first of all, since Jupiter is retro here, we shall apply the strings of direct Jupiter and indirect and direct and also retro Jupiter. Direct Jupiter we see that Jupiter has Jupiter and Saturn in its string and connected to Mercury, Mars, Sun and Venus in the opposition, and there is also no planet in the 12th and the second house. We shall first write out the degrees of all these planets and arrange them in the ascending order. For that, Jupiter will come first. Next will be Saturn, yes, 11 degrees. And after that, we have Mars, which is combust. We should write 43 and 40. So, after Saturn comes Mercury. Mercury is in the third position. And then Mars is in the fourth position. And Sun is in fifth position and Venus is in sixth position. Now we will write all these planets in the ascending order. When the planets are in such close degrees of conjunction, then as we see in Mercury and Saturn, then only we should write the degrees. Otherwise 9 and 11 will help, and 25, 27, 28 will also help in writing the string. When there is a decimal place difference, then we have to mention the decimals also in the string while writing the string. That will enable us to place the planets in the proper ascending order. Now we shall attempt to write the retro string of Jupiter. When Jupiter is retro, obviously Saturn will also go retro, and we can see that from this Lagna 1, 5 and 9. 159. There is no planet in 159 and there is only Rahu in the 12th house. So we shall present Saturn retro, Jupiter retro and Rahu. And once we write the degrees, exactly this is the order also for the retro string of Saturn, retro string of Jupiter. Jupiter is at 9 degrees, Saturn is at 11 degrees and Rahu is at 14 degrees. And here we forgot to write Ketu, and Ketu comes at 14 degrees, which is between Mercury and Mars. We should include Ketu also in the string. Ketu is at 14 degrees. Since all the planets are concentrated in this house, we need not again write strings for Mercury, Mars, Sun and Venus and Saturn and Jupiter, because the string is common. See, when all the planets are there, their fifth position will be only changes Rahu and Ketu. From here if we write, we will include Rahu and we will exclude Ketu, because the trine will be like this. And opposition is common, and this is exclusively opposition, and also the trinal Ketu. Here the trine will be with Rahu. In lieu of Ketu, we have to write Rahu for the string of all these planets. Since the date of birth is 11/4/81, now the native age is 44 years 5 months plus some days. Okay, so this 44 years and still the girl is trying to get married. She does not want to stay alone. She does want to get herself into a marriage relationship, but still the planets are not agreeing. Now we shall check the fault lines of the charts. If we see the Vedic or the BNN chart, there is no issue to get married because Jupiter is directly accessing Venus and also Mars. But here, when we come to the KP chart or the Bhava Chalit chart, we can see that Jupiter and Saturn both have moved into the first Bhava. They belong to the first house. They are in the second house in the Bhava chart, in the D1, but they have in fact moved into the first house of, this is the KP chart or the Bhav Chalit chart. We should say it is the Bhav Chalit chart. And also here we can see that 7th house is bereft of planets and Mercury is in fact in the 7th house, and rest all the 3 planets, Suns, Mars and Venus, which seem to be in the 7th house, have actually shifted to the 8th house of pain and obstacles and tensions and stress related to the marriage. The 7th lord is also in the first house. And we can see that the actual Karakas in the female chart, Mars and Venus, both are combust. And not only combust, they have formed 6-8 axis with Jupiter and Saturn. Saturn is 7th lord, Jupiter is the Jiva, and there is a 6-8 axis between these two important planets and the other better planets that manifest the event of marriage. And even if she manages to somehow get herself married, is there any chance of any happiness in the marriage? The Mars itself is combust. Very, very deep combustion. You can see 20 degrees Mars and Sun is 27 degrees 57 and Venus is 28 degrees 55 minutes. See the close nature of combustion. This is called super combustion, super conjunction and also super combustion. Sun is sandwiched between Mars and Venus, and Mars is 8th lord in the chart and Venus is 3rd lord in the chart, and father is Karaka of, and Sun is Karaka of father. Hence the father died very young for this native. Let me check it. This is not exactly 8th lord to the Lagna. Mind you, we are in the study of BNN, and hence Mars is 8th lord from the opposite of Jupiter, which is the opposite of Jupiter is in the 2nd house, and from Jupiter Mars is the 8th lord, and Jupiter becomes the Venus becomes the 2nd lord. And for Jupiter placed here in the dual Rasi, the 7th lord becomes the Maraka and Badaka, and hence here Jupiter itself is the 7th, is the Maraka and Badaka for this chart, aspecting directly the all these important planets and also the Karaka Sun. The native is very hopeful to get herself married, but what is preventing her? Even at the 44 years and 5 months, she is still in the lookout for the best person as a spouse. In fact, there are multiple yogas, as we can see in the chart. Beautiful Dhana Yoga formation by Mercury, and also 4-10, 9-10, and all these yogas with the Lagnadipati, but still there is no promised delivery in this chart to this native because of the shifting of all the planets to the 8th house, and this is really a painful situation. And when we see the string here, Jupiter, the Jiva, is really going through such a painful hell in life. See, he being the 5th lord and 8th lord, he is posted in the 2nd house from Lagna, and so is Saturn. We can see that in the family, in the 2nd house of family, there is 6th and 8th combination, and this is really, really painful situation. And this is also not only family, the house of money, bank balances, and all these are really disturbed due to loss of father at such an early stage. And then the jiva herself wants to do some work, and she is facing a lot of obstacles and also pressures and also limitations, because Saturn is a natural karaka of limitation and a lot of tensions and pressures in the family. And he, sixth lord, is in the second house. And you can also see that Mercury, being the second and 11th lord, is also in the 8th house of pain. So even the yoga that is forming, the Dana yoga, is creating loss by the position of Mercury. And not only that, Mercury is debilitated in this house of 8th house. But the Lord is seeing, and also Venus is also in the same place of exaltation. And when a planet of exaltation and the Lord of the house aspect the planet which is in debilitation, the debilitation gets broken. But here, since Venus is combust and Mercury is combust, and Venus and Mars are combust, and both are very much in the 8th house, they both fail to offer any kind of help to the native. And then Jupiter, Saturn and Mercury are cut off by the Rahu Ketu axis. You can see Jupiter and Saturn are on one side of the chart, and Venus, Sun, Mars, Mercury all are on the other side of the chart, which goes on to say that Rahu Ketu are cutting the person away, because these two planets, Jupiter and Saturn, are on one side and rest of the planets are on the other side of the axis, which means to say Rahu Ketu are playing the foul game of boundary, and they have ruled out the possibility of enjoying all the benefits of the chart, which is giving so many yogas and also so many kinds of combinations. Everything is forming in the 8th house. Though Venus is exalted, it is combust. We should not forget that it is in super conjunction or super combustion to Sun. Both Mars and Venus are totally destroyed by Sun here in the chart, and Sun is sitting in the middle of both Mars on one side and Venus on one side. And Venus has crossed both Mars and Sun, and the entire, it being a water planet, it has crossed two fiery planets, and also the Ketu is also before that. So Venus passed through these planets and arrived at where it is now, and hence Venus has exhausted itself, thoroughly exhausted itself after passing through these fiery planets, and fails to deliver. When there is a combustion, we should understand the nature of combustion. Combustion is something in which all the jiva karakas get ruined in life. They are ruined, totally destroyed and totally burnt out in life. Here, it being a super conjunction and super combustion, here the native is facing the difficulty of getting into relationship or getting into marriage in any way, as both Mars, the karaka of marriage, and Venus, the karaka of relationship, both are combust in the chart. Mane pura they are burnt. When we come to house lordships and their placements from the Lagna, we can as well see that the 8th house is super active and hyperactive in the chart, and 8th house is giving all kinds of tensions and pressures and creating all kinds of obstacles for the native, and it is limiting the native from getting any fruit in life due to the Lagnadipati, which is totally misplaced and controlling all the other planets, rather destroying all the other planets rather than saying controlling. Now we shall see what jewels and diamonds the Navamsa is hiding in its path. Here again we see that the 8th lord Jupiter is very much in its own house, and Venus again is Vargotham, and Sun, the Lagnadipati, also went into the 8th house. Once again the 8th house is predominantly checking out, though it is, the Venus is exalted and Jupiter is in its own house, and both are together. Still marriage has not manifested. Karaka of marriage, Mars, has fallen well behind. Jupiter will obviously move forward in progressions, and there is no way Jupiter can meet the Mars. in this chart. Same thing applies to the D1 also. Jupiter on its journey has to meet Mars, but here Ketu is playing the spoil sport, as well as Mercury is also creating the obstacle here. And because Jupiter, as we have seen in the string, that though Mercury is very good with all the Dhana Yoga, again it is placed in the 8th house, which is nullifying the results of the yoga formed. Navamsha, we have a very clear picture of what is happening in the 8th house from the Lagna, because Rasi Tulya Amsa is the study for Navamsa, and this is the first house for the D1 chart. We also replicate the same in the D1, D9 and keep studying from here. Again, 8th house is super active, and 8th house is also, as you can see, Mars is going towards the 8th house and Saturn is retro and also running into the 8th house. There is a clash, and the 8th house is in Papakartari, wherein the good planets, Sun, the Lagnadipati, Jupiter, the Jiva, and Venus, all kinds of relationships are getting crushed by these two malefics, Saturn and Mars. And Rahu, moreover, is playing the spoil sport. He is trying to the 8th house in the Navamsha chart. And what more can we say about this chart? This is really tragedy. Now let us see, the native has crossed round 1 ends at this point, and round 2 ends at this point, round 3 and 4 ends in the Capricorn. Here the native achieved the age of end of 4 rounds, which comes to 48 years. Now we have to see what has prevented her marriage. In round 1 it is not possible, she will be 12-year-old, and from here to here she will be 24 years, and 24 to 36 years. What happened in the chart when the native reached these points, which is about 28 degrees, 25 degrees to 25 degrees? What happened and why the marriage did not manifest? We have to check now, because at 28 degrees and 25 degrees Jupiter became trine to both Venus and Mars. We know that Jupiter operates 0 to 12 from the house behind it, and there are high chances of native getting married before 24 or after 37 to 48. Now we shall see what prevented, now that she has already arrived at 44 years, I think, because it is 85 and 81 chart, 44 years, 5 months. This is the age right now. But Jupiter is aspecting both Venus and Mars from here. Again, the marriage is not consummated. Between 25 to 36, now we come to understand Jupiter is not available in the string, because the Jupiter string has only Jupiter, Saturn and Rahu. There is no possibility of marriage in this period. But when it is here, that is 37 to 48, what prevented the native from getting married? Now we shall see the minor progressions of Jupiter. In the Ashtaka Varga, we can see that the 2nd house and the 7th house, this is the Lagna, the 7th house and the 8th house all have very weak points, and Mercury is posited in the D9 in the D1 chart in the 8th house. And how many points is actually Mercury giving to the 7th house? As there is the Mercury Dasha that was happening until the age of 42, it is 2023, which is 81, 42 years. Until 42 years Mercury Dasha was running, which was the prime age for her to get married, the previous 17 years. So 29, this is the Mercury Mahadasha period, and then came Ketu, 30 December 23 to 29 December 30. See how many points Mercury is giving to the 7th house. This is hardly anything good. No, this is not the 7th house, it is the 7th Rasi. How many points? This is the 11th house, and Mercury is 11th Rasi is the 7th house. So 11th Rasi, Mercury is again giving the same 3 points, which is very, very weak, where the things won't manifest at all. right away we can see that Mercury is the second lord, 11th lord, posited in the 7th house according to the KP chart. So Mercury Mahadasha must have given the marriage at all costs, but it did not manifest in the life of the native, as we know that she is already 44-year-old and also in the lookout of marriage as on date. In addition to the 2711 of Mercury, we can see that Mars, Sun and Venus are also in the star of Mercury, and so there was an abundant chance of getting herself married during this period. But what went wrong? We must again focus. Here Saturn trine Ketu and opposition Mars is forming Langoti Yoga in the chart, which is absence of marital life. But when Jupiter gets connected, there is the blessing of Jupiter, which is the main Jiva Karaka, and there is every possibility to get the native into the marital knot. And up to 36 years we have seen that Jupiter is forming 6-8 to Venus, because the string has no Venus in the retro string. But 37 to 48 Mercury Dasa was there. Mercury was also giving opposition to Jupiter here. Everything was conducive, and Saturn also moved. Here Saturn operates to 0-30, and Saturn also moved here from 30 to 60 years. So everything was, double transit was also over Mercury, and Jupiter himself, being the 7th lord, could not deliver the purpose. And see the weakness of the 7th house. Even Sun, the Lagnadipati, is giving 3 points. The parent mother is giving 2 points. Mars, husband, is also, whoever comes as the bride groom is unwilling, and Mercury is giving, the 7th lord itself is giving 3 points. Jupiter is also offering 3 points, and Venus is 3. Every planet is very weak except Saturn, who is the 7th lord himself, and ascendant is also giving 3 points to the house of marriage. This shows a very weak yoga for marriage. Ashtaka is the final signature or stamp for getting the task completed to the accomplishment level. Here, after the end of 44th round, which is 48 years, the native is fast approaching Ketu, and once the Ketu is crossed, there may be a slight possibility of getting married, which is again after 48 Jupiter will be at 9 degrees, ending the round 4, and next 5 years Jupiter will offer 5 degrees. It will navigate 5 degrees in the major progression, and Jupiter will cross Ketu after that, which is 14 degrees. And once Jupiter crosses Ketu at the age of 50, there are chances that the chart will look up, because now the obstacle of Ketu stands crossed, and Jupiter is fast approaching the 7th house, and now 7th house is second to Jupiter, and now again the triggers seem to form for conducive to marriage, because we have to say this because the native is still in the lookout. Now the inner chart is the natal chart, and the outer chart is the transit, where we can see that at 15 years, at 2015, the native has entered her 36th year. And here, why Mercury could not give marriage? See the transit, how the transit is playing the fool. Here Ketu is again, Rahu and Ketu came into the axis, and Mercury fell into the axis. Mercury is in fact the star all the planets are in Mercury star, and they have to manifest the event, but they are in the Rahu Ketu axis, and so is the 7th lord Saturn here. The Karakas, I mean to say, what is cutting the issue here. And then you can see the next year also Ketu is very much here, and clearly you can see that progressive Ketu also, he moves from here to here to here, and Jupiter is coming forward, and whom is Ketu meeting? He is also meeting the 7th lord as well as the Jiva here, the Karaka, and here Ketu will be in the 18th year, it will arrive at 13 degrees. 36th year Ketu will be here, and the next 48th year Ketu will be right in the second house to Jupiter and Saturn. For this chart not to manifest the event, we can only have these points, both the very important karakas in the female chart, Venus and Mars. Venus is the karaka of marriage and Mars being the karaka of husband. Both are combust. This is reason number 1. Next reason is all the important planets are 8th house to Lagna. 8th house to Lagna. And Mercury in its own dasa also failed to deliver, even though all these important planets are in the 8th, because Mercury himself is also in the 8th house to Lagna. And Mercury is doubly, and we cannot consider debilitation in this chart because Mercury has come out of debilitation in 2 ways, with the aspect of Jupiter as well as the lord of this Rasi, and also Venus himself, the exalted planet. And another reason is Saturn, Ketu, Mars forming a now marriage yoga. And 5th point is, as we have already seen here in the Navamsha chart, Saturn and Mars both are making this house a sandwich. Here we can see that Sun, which is the first lord, and Venus, the karaka of marriage in the female chart, and Jupiter himself are being sandwiched by 2 natural malefics in the Navamsha. Sun, Jupiter and Venus are crushed by the Papakartari. And the 7th house itself is very weak in the Astakavarga. Jupiter aspect must have prevented all the mess in the chart, but again we have to see that Jupiter himself happens to be the 8th lord, but 8th lord in the 2nd house directly aspecting his own house is again another addition which is good for the chart. But Jupiter alone, all alone, cannot rescue so many miscreants in the chart. Here Jupiter already afflicted by Saturn and also Mars. There is double affliction to Jupiter and double affliction to the Lagnesh also. The Lagnesh, the person in the D1 is afflicted by Saturn and presence of Mars, as well as the D9 is clearly showing that both these planets are once again caught in the Papakartari of the same 2, Saturn and Mars. When Jupiter aspects Venus and Mars, the marriage should happen very early, but here there are so many breaks. Saturn is also there, and hence the chances have become very bleak. And even though all the planets are in the same star of Mercury, who happens to deliver 2 and 11 successfully, he is having the lordships, but already there are planets 12th lord in the house of Mercury who is taking charge of the 11th house, and Saturn here and 8th lord Jupiter, both the 8 is Saturn and Jupiter is also 8, being 8th lord. This house, 2nd house, is getting very very handicapped. And even though the aspects are on Venus, now again 8th lord is we go on to say that 8th lord is aspecting Venus, and also Saturn being the representative of 8 and delay and obstructions is also aspecting Venus and also Mars. And these are the so many varied and deep reasons why the chart is not manifesting marriage to the native. Now coming to the discussion of the same chart with respect to Vedic, we have to see that how is the 7th house, how is the 7th lord, how is the 7th house from the 7th lord. This is the 7th house from 7th lord. Saturn is the 7th lord. How is the 7th house? These are the various aspects we have to watch with respect to the Vedic interpretation of the chart. Not only 7th lord and 7th house, we have to see the 7th house from Jupiter, which is again the same house, and also we have to see the 7th house from Moon. How is the condition of the 7th house from Moon, and how is the condition of 7th house from Sun? So these are all the manifold aspects which we take care of in the Vedic. ఇంకొక పాయింట్ ఏంటంటే, నవాంశలో మనకి సాటర్న్ 7th లార్డు ఆయన ఇక్కడ కూర్చున్నాడు రాశిలో, అక్కడి నుంచి నవాంశలో ఆయన 6-8 అనేది ఫార్మ్ చేశాడు. 6-8 ఇన్ నవాంశ పొజిషన్స్. అండ్ ఆల్సో మెర్క్యూరీ ఏదైతే దశానాథ ఉన్నాడో పవర్ఫుల్గా మ్యారేజ్ ఇచ్చేస్తాడు అనుకుంటే, ఆయన దగ్గర నుంచి నవాంశలో వీనస్, జూపిటర్, సన్ కూడా 6-8 ఫార్మేషన్లోకి వచ్చేసారు. All the karakas, as we see, Saturn has moved 8th from himself in the Navamsha. Saturn is here and he moved 8th from himself, and Mercury, the main Dashanada which was showing 2-7-11 in the natal chart, here he also went 6-8-12 to important karakas, Venus and Jupiter, and also the Lagnadipati, and all these three are also, as we know, they are sandwiched, and this is also one of the fatal important reasons why marriage could not manifest. And Saturn himself is once again sandwiched between Ketu and the 8th lord Jupiter. We can see that the 7th lord is aspecting both the Dasanada and also the Lagna of Navamsa, but again Mercury could not give the marriage due to the so many reasons which have been explained just in the previous sessions. Another most important point which cannot be overlooked according to Vedic is Sun is enemy of Venus and Venus is enemy of Sun. This is mutual enmity. Similarly, Mercury is enemy of Mars. This is one-way enmity, and this is how the manifestation of events were totally closed here due to a very complicated friendship enmity operating in the 7th house from Jupiter, and also 7th house from the 7th lord is damaged in every way, both in the Navamsha as well as in the D1, as all the planets have moved into the 8th house, placed in the 8th. Even the progression, the major progression of Jupiter and major progression of Saturn, and the positive strings of direct Jupiter and direct Saturn locating in this place during the Mercury Mahadasha could not manifest marriage till date due to so many multiple problems in the chart, like combustion, enmity, and 6-8 axis. In spite of all the hurdles, let us hope, pray, and wish that the native gets married as soon as possible, as she is still having the hope of getting herself into a sweet and strong bond of marriage.